So recently we've been sharing some content around upskilling and the future of work. And one theme that keeps coming up is digital literacy. It's clear that as technology evolves, the ability to understand and work with digital tools isn't just a nice to have, it's a core skill. And one of the biggest disruptors right now is AI. So today I'm sitting down with my colleague Leo to talk about how we can bring AI into the workplace in a way that's thoughtful, strategic, and actually supports our teams. Leo is an associate consultant of behavioral science and innovation at Sigma. He's also our resident AI expert and has been moving our organization towards becoming more AI savvy. So, hello, Leo. Thanks for joining me today.
Hi, Erica. Thanks for having me.
So, I just wanted to start out by finding out a little bit more about how you first became personally interested in AI.
Sure. I guess even kind of since I was a kid, I've been interested in technology in general. I'd watch kind of major product releases from some of the kind of better known tech companies. And as soon as this AI stuff started to meaningfully make its way into kind of academic work and also into the industry space, just given my psychological background and research interests, I became interested in how it can enhance our cognitive capacities to an extent. So allowing us to abstract from let's say the menial aspects of our work to higher order thinking and how that might potentially promote kind of more creativity, allow people to work more flexibly and kind of at the end of the day get more stuff done without getting bogged down by the, you know, small procedural characteristics of work that we might not find, intrinsically motivating in any way, shape, or form. So it's kind of the combination of pre-existing interest in technology plus the interest in psychology, how it applies to work. And those two things just kind of combine to, yeah, it's just an interesting area that really combines my interests. So yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, that's an interesting way to look at it of like freeing up, like you said, kind of taking care of the things that are mundane or maybe not as interesting about your job to free up that mental
Mhm.
capacity for things that are more creative and probably more enjoyable for a lot of people.
Yeah, and the potential for having a an on-demand, almost like a coworker of sorts or a thought partner, where we don't have to sit in our own little echo chambers, and that, especially given that a substantial proportion of people do work from home for at least some part of the week, that can be very helpful. Especially so if, let's say, for example, I'm writing something and I'm just completely stuck, it can be a useful way to get the gears moving again. Whereas
Hmm.
before I might have just kind of sat around and tried to figure out how to move on from a mental block.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I found that helpful too. Just bounce somebody to bounce ideas off of and help you work through when you get stuck.
Mhm.
So how would you say organizations can best support their workers in building their AI skill set if this is something that's new to them?
Mhm. Well, I guess first and foremost, what I think is important is identifying what facets of the organization or of the work that people are doing actually benefits from AI integration, right? So it's important that we don't, run around with this new tool trying to find everything possible to apply it to, because
Mm-hmm.
it's useful for lots of things, but other things, potentially not so much. Um, so once those things have been identified, I think organizations and leaders in general should be careful not to say, okay, here's AI, go use it, without creating the necessary space and kind of leadership directive to experiment with these tools, because much like anything else, you wouldn't just introduce a new piece of software and then say, go use it without any instruction. So, providing low stakes environment for experimentation, it's okay to learn and there should
Hmm.
be time allocated for that. Um, like I said, providing role specific use cases, right? And I think that it's important for leadership of an organization to also kind of model what they expect from employees and, like I said, create the actual space and expectation that people will have the time to do it, right? And then I mean, ideally, it would be good to really identify what aspects of work, like I said, you want employees to apply this technology to, and then provide a structured, let's say, development plan for people who maybe aren't as familiar with it, right? And facilitate ongoing discussion, kind of knowledge sharing within the organization. And so over time, you end up with people who are better versed in the technology, which is great. But also you build up that foundational organizational knowledge to apply the technology to, let's say, proprietary processes you might have, or anything else that's kind of unique to your company.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like a good opportunity for like peer-to-peer learning because so many people are working on
Mhm,
developing these skills at the same time. So you can really kind of lean on and leverage your coworkers as you're working through this as well.
mhm.
Do you have any advice that you would offer to organizations where maybe they're facing some employee resistance or apprehension towards adopting AI?
Yeah, 100%. I think it's completely understandable that some people might be worried, right? An employee base in any company is going to vary in their experience with this technology, right? So I think it's important to acknowledge any fears that, oh, AI is coming for someone's job, right?
Hmm.
Something of the sort. Um, at a fundamental level, I think the anxiety around this kind of change is it might be, you know, job security concerns or competence concerns. So reinforcing the idea that, yeah, it's okay. We're all just learning this stuff and it's completely fine. Um, it's important to frame the technology as it's a personal productivity enhancer. It's kind of like I said, like a coworker to an extent, not to personify it too much, but you understand kind of where what I'm
Hmm.
getting at there. So framing it as that and not an immediate threat. So kind of you should pull people into this as opposed to trying to scare them into it to an extent.
Yeah.
That tends to be more motivating for exploration because nobody knows a particular role better than a person who's doing it. So you want that person to be free to kind of have the autonomy to experiment and um, try to be maximally productive with it. And so especially if at the outset, it is quite I would say important to not immediately pair the introduction of a new technology with increased performance expectations right from the get-go. That's just not really fair and feasible.
Hmm.
Um, so it needs to be a gradual process where, let's say in the future, your organization does experience substantial productivity improvements, however many months or years down the line, then you can reevaluate your standards for performance, but it's completely unreasonable to expect magic from just, okay, here's the tool, suddenly everyone is substantially more productive. Um,
Hmm.
and the other thing I would say is to emphasize augmentation of work and not automation of work. So just reinforcing that you still need the human oversight at every component of the work. Um, so, and that can help maybe assuage some of those fears about, oh, replacement or something like that. You still have to acknowledge the value of having a person as a core component of that process. Yeah, that those are kind of the main things that
Hmm.
come to mind.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that that's really helpful things to consider. So, beside technical skills, what other competencies would help employees as they're experimenting with AI and as they're developing
Hmm.
these skills?
Hmm. Right. Yeah. I guess exercising some degree of cognitive flexibility, and let's say somebody has done their job for a very, very long time. Um, it is very challenging and understandably so to start rethinking how to do that work.
Hmm.
So, being temporarily comfortable with some degree of change and having some flexibility is, I think, important. Um, Kind of to think about Sigma competency specifically, analytical orientation as a way to kind of being very thoughtful while you're doing the work still, even if it's AI assisted, to just make sure that you're thinking very critically. You're evaluating outputs, you're making notes, you're adjusting your approach over time, right? Because AI tools they're not magic. We can't expect it to be magic. You still
Hmm.
have to be a competent user. So I would say kind of a mixture of that flexibility, the analytical orientation, um, just being exercising some degree of curiosity about these tools, right? There are some individual difference variables that might moderate the extent to which people are receptive to this, but to
Mhm.
the extent possible, I think we can all work to be more, um, less rigid in our approach during, especially during a time of substantial kind of technological change. Um, and then also, because a lot of the consumer-facing AI tools rely on chat-based interfaces to one extent or another, not all of them, but that's kind of the predominant way that people interact with it, or via voice, let's say, communication skills, right? Imagine you're talking to a person. Would you expect that person to miraculously infer what it is you actually kind of mean? Probably not. So exercising that same degree of communicational clarity, even when interacting with AI tools, is also very important. So it's that mix of um, being very analytical in your approach, maintaining some curiosity, flexibility, um, but also not letting go of foundational communication skills that are important in pretty much every job.
It's actually, I find like a good opportunity to practice communication skills. You put in a
Hmm.
prompt and you think you're being clear, but it gives you back something different than you expected. And
Hmm.
then maybe you reflect on your prompt, say, okay, I see how you got there. I need to refine my messaging to really
Yeah.
communicate across what I wanted to get.
Yeah, for people who want to practice various facets of communication, what you can also do is, let's say you're preparing a presentation, or you're generally getting prepared for, let's say, some sort of stakeholder meeting. You can ask your personal AI tool of choice to adopt a particular persona, give it some degree of context, and say, here's what I've prepared. Here are the main points I want to make. What do you think? What are the pros and cons? Am I maybe not tailoring my message appropriately to the
Mhm.
audience? So that's where um, kind of creativity with your approach and how you use the tools can be very helpful. So yeah, lots of potential there.
Yeah, lots of potential applications. So we've talked about how, these tools are evolving. There's a lot of updates, it seems like, that are coming out. Do you have any recommendations for how people can stay updated with the developments that are going on without feeling overwhelmed? Do you have um, kind of any practical strategies or any resources that you follow that are helpful for keeping people updated?
Well, I guess I would say figure out the extent to which you want to stay updated, because there's way too many things going on in the world. And if it's critical to your job to know absolutely every single development that's happening in AI, then you might want to have personalized news feeds that are, tailored to your preferences and things of the sort. Um, but at a more, just kind of for a regular user, um, you can even simple things like, for example, companies that create AI services will often publish user-facing kind of feature reports. So instead of getting bogged down by all the various sources and whatever, because every news outlet tries to jump on kind of every new release and put out an article, whatever, you can just go directly and read that stuff. It's generally pretty clearly formatted. Here's the things that we've implemented. Here's what this means for you as a user. Those are, especially as it pertains to the AI tool, let's say, that you use the most in your everyday
Hmm.
work. Um, that's what I would say. And then another thing you can do is explicitly ask an AI tool to search the web and give it some context and say, is there what should I be aware of? Here are my interests. What are the up and coming developments across various companies? So that's another use case of any of these chat-based consumer-facing AI tools, where you can use it to curate knowledge for yourself in pretty much any way, shape, or form. So some people use it, even if you do a Google search nowadays, right? There's an AI summary at the top,
Hmm.
at the very top of search results. So uh, kind of using that framework, I think can be helpful. But my number one thing is, much like anything else, when there's a field of technology that's very rapidly evolving, it can be quite, if you're real, unless you're extremely interested and then you really love it, it can be very almost exhausting to try to keep up with everything. So it's also important to stay grounded, kind of figure out how to be a very competent user of the technology you rely on the most. Um, you know, and then also you could just talk to people, right? You might find that there's a person at work who's very well versed in this stuff or whatever. So just be very open to asking questions and talking to people, just to facilitate that kind of, knowledge transfer within the organization.
Hmm.
Yeah. That's kind of
Okay.
my takeaway message. Really depends on how far you want to go
Hmm.
into this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. You can be as updated as you need to be, as is relevant for your role and how you're
Yeah.
using it. Yeah.
Hmm.
Okay. So just one more question for you today. When you look ahead, what are some emerging trends in AI that you think organizations should be prepared for or might want to prepare for?
Yeah. So at this point, I would say that the consumer and business facing, the typical chat-based AI tools that we're almost used to at this point, they've grown into genuinely useful products, and lots of people are using them, and that's awesome. I think that in the near to yeah, in the near, not too distant future, we're going to really shift focus to autonomous AI systems that can complete work kind of on their own. So it's not just a query-based system where you give it one particular task. These are what are called AI agents that can function in a variety of environments. So let's say in a programming environment, kind of as an additional, let's say, junior software engineer, if you will, and eventually probably graduating past the point of junior software engineer. Um, and so you'll probably see, much like some recent announcements from from companies like Microsoft, standardized protocols for AI agents to communicate with each other across web services and other applications. So kind of going forward, I think it will be important to monitor how organizations can leverage AI agents, not just consumer facing AI tools that we're already accustomed to,
Hmm.
and figure out how to kind of use them maximally to their competitive advantage. I think that's
Hmm.
kind of the near to midterm future. Yeah,
Okay. Well, thank you, Leo, for sharing your thoughts with me today. It's really interesting.
no
For
problem.
everyone watching, thanks for tuning in. If you're thinking about how to build your AI readiness in your organization or you're trying to figure out where to start, let's keep the conversation going. So feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn for more content around upskilling, digital literacy, and the future of work.